our belief really is that we were born with an ovarian lottery, but the audience that we cater to and the demographic that we reach out to weren't. So how is it that we can just, bridge that exposure and give them the same level of access to role models, education, infrastructure, career, everything online, and be able to bridge that gap completely? And we know that when you're getting into a problem like that, which is systemic, which has been there for generations, it's not going to get solved overnight. It's going to take 2 to 3 decades to solve. So it's always been that, we've never had a short-term view on this, that it's going to be something that we, quickly exit from after building it into a large business. The goal has always been impact and change first. So we always kind of approach problems from that perspective and try to really think of where are we.
This is Siddharth Aluwalia. Welcome to the 100x Entrepreneur Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Prime Venture Partners, an early stage VC fund led by Amit Somani, Shripati Acharya, and Sanjay Swami. Prime is often the first institutional investor in category creating tech startups in fintech, SaaS, healthcare, and education such as MoneyTap, Happy, MFine. To know more about Prime, visit primevp.in. Today, I have with me Supriya Paul, founder of Josh Talks. I know Supriya from the last 6 years. We both started our journeys together at Entrepreneurs. Me and my team were building Baby Gogo, and we were one, and Supriya and Shobit just started Josh Talks. It was, in Connaught Place, Delhi, in a co-working. India's one of the first co-working started in India called Innovate by a common dear friend Ritesh Malik. uh, Supriya, you have come a long, long way from that point. Right?
Yeah,
Really proud of what you and Shobit have achieved. So, could you give a brief, how your journey started as
sure.
entrepreneurs? I really remember, right? You were doing very well initially as an alternate platform for TEDx in India, and then saw that you can build a much more scalable model which could impact millions of people, help them in upskilling in tier 2,
Absolutely.
tier 3, tier 4 India. So would love to know the thought process and the journey from in the last 6 years, how Joe Stocks has evolved.
Sure. So, when we started, we were in college. I don't know if you remember at that point of time, we had just graduated. And I think we were naive in thought at that point of time on what we should start off with, which is why we chose events as the first medium of Josh Talks. But the goal, however, has always been the same, right? The goal is that for someone who's from a smaller town or city in India, does not speak in English fluently, has not got access to the right kind of role models or the right kind of education, upskilling, jobs, etc., how can you be that elder brother who creates that entire ecosystem for them? And that's sort of been like the thought behind taking any decision that we've taken over the last 5 to 6 years. So we started off with events, and we used to call these speakers who would come in and give talks anywhere between 6 to 20 minutes in a format similar to TED. And the goal really at that point of time was to see how it impacts the audience. Does it actually get them charged up? Do people respond well, etc.? And events was a lot of fun. We did it for about 1.5 years. We toured campuses across India. We built like a massive student community who used to love Josh Talks. Soon we got a lot of requests, and it was kind of like replacing the TEDx college version by having a Josh Talks happening on campus instead. But by doing that, what we realized was that one, we were not affecting the audience that we really wanted to impact. People who were actually coming to events or were being able to afford a ticket or travel were again students from tier one India, who had access to infrastructure, that we wanted to create. Second was that an event for us meant focus on the content, but it had become a lot of noise with a lot of event management and things like that. So we decided that we would move completely away from that model and move into a studio shot model where we would focus only on the speaker and what he or she was saying. And that's something that we did in 2017. Coincidentally, the geo revolution had also started to take place at that point of time, and I think that was like the smartest and the biggest decision that we made, which was to move completely into Hindi from a English or a English platform. And then soon after Hindi started picking up online on YouTube, we decided to launch in 7 other regional languages. So up until last year, we were actually only working on Josh Talks, and the idea was to create a community of people from Bharat, from tier two, tier three, tier four India, who aspired to do something in their lives, who were charged up to get up and actually move forward. And what we've been working on in the last 1 year now is Josh Skills, which is basically creating infrastructure for this audience. Once they've seen a story, they've heard a Josh talk, they're inspired कि अब मेरे को भी ये करना है जिंदगी में या मैं भी ये बनूंगी. Josh Skills is a platform that teaches you essential skills that can actually help you get jobs. So we started out with some core skills like spoken English and personality development, and now we're working on introducing other technical skills. So that's sort of been the journey so far.
And can you tell the various milestones in the journey? Like, if you can share, what was the revenue back in 2016, 17, and what's the revenue today?
It's yeah, I don't even think it's admissible. But so when we started, we were in events business. Sponsorship was the only way for us to generate any form of cash. So I think the first year we did maybe 40,000 in revenue. The second year we moved to 6 lakhs. The third year was 40 lakhs. The year after that was 1.5, then 5.5, and then we ended the last year at about 10.5. So it's been interesting because, like our model has changed from being an organization that relied only on ticket sales as revenue to then becoming something that was supported through branded content and ads to now actually moving away from that model and relying completely on B2C revenue, which is the users directly paying for the courses on the app. So it's been sort of like a transition after every couple of years.
And what will be the current split, let's say between the 10 and half,
Yeah,
between the Josh Skills app, which is people pay for subscription
yeah.
and upskilling courses, and the branded and advertisement on the Josh YouTube
Sure.
channels?
So skills is fairly new, but it's about 20 lakhs a month. So you can take about 2.5 crores from last year's revenue was driven by skills. But now our goal is, and COVID has also actually played a part, right? A lot of advertising revenue has gone down. B2B partnerships have reduced overall for branded content, etc. So now our focus is also moving towards, going completely B2C and focusing on this entirely. Yeah.
Okay. And I think you have raised. Can you also elaborate on your funding journey? Who was your, first investor, then the
Yeah.
next round, then the next?
Sure. So I think the first investor we already know. The first investor was Ritesh, and that's how I, stumbled and came to Innovate, paying him no rent for forever, and he still mocks me for it. But so I don't know what it was with us, right? Maybe we were just stubborn in the beginning, but we were very, we were running a media business, right? Like Juice Talks was a media business, and
Yeah.
we thought that at the base of a media business is profitability. Profitability. How can we not generate cash in a business like that? So we were very frugal. We didn't raise any money up until the second or third year of operations, where we did a small angel round for 1.5 crores, where we had people like Ritesh, we had Girish Matrabhutam from Freshworks, and a couple of other angels, Rohit Chanana invest. And so with 1.5 crores of capital is what we built, took Josh Talks from one language into 7 other languages and built our viewership, I think, from it was close to like 500,000 at that point of time to now, which is 75 million a month. And early last year is when we raised our pre-series A from MDIF, which is a New York-based fund. And the idea behind raising the money was very simple. We had already proven Juice Talks out. We had built this funnel, and we wanted to test the funnel to create another product, which for us is skills right now. And that's what we've raised money for.
And you build the business very organically,
Yeah.
right? Starting with a few experiments, seeing what works, scaling that, right? So, can you share your journey of building the current YouTube properties of Josh Talks? Like, how did the what were the initial sparks that gave you confidence in it? I remember you, being able to call speakers such as Anurag Kashyap
Hmm.
at your live events, and then sharing their recording, which I think were one of the few sparks, as I
Yeah.
remember some of these videos going viral in 2017.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So, I think, speakers and speaker research obviously played a very big role in the initial days where we were actually reaching out to people instead of them reaching out to us. And it was difficult to convince people like Anurag to come in, but when they realized that the goal of the platform is to speak to someone who is, a younger version of themselves sitting in a small town or village in India, that convincing ability just became easier. And that's why he agreed. Then we had people like Bowman Irani, etc., also come in and give talks. And that did, create that initial push. But over time, the platform has evolved a lot. So now it's almost become like, celebrity talks don't do really well as compared to, an Aam Aadmi's talk. Because that's basically what we're known for right now. It's almost like your गली या मोहल्ले का जो शॉपकीपर है या किराना स्टोर ओनर है, ये उसकी कहानी है कि कैसे उसने 10,000 रुपए से अब 2.5 लाख रुपए कमाए और अपनी फैमिली को एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड कर पाया. So it's become completely relatable to the audience that we are trying to cater to. And I think that vulnerability and purity in storytelling is what has actually gotten us this far, because it's a no noise platform. It's just you. There's a black background behind you. There's lighting done in a certain way. You're on a red spot. And the idea is for you to completely pour your heart out, just as you would when you're talking to a younger sibling. So it's not a I'm on stage, I'm on a pedestal, let me talk about, the future. It's more like what got me over here, and these are all the challenges that I had, and this is how I overcame them, and this is how you can overcome it too. So that's basically how we sort of developed our content. And with language to language, it changes. For example, like with Hindi, a huge part of our audience aspires to be a government servant. So we have a huge category in government jobs, as opposed to Marathi, where most of our users are interested in business. So there are a lot of stories of small and medium business owners, which have done well. So we kind of tweak the strategy language to language, but the idea is to push through great content, and then obviously like perform very well on YouTube through tags, through thumbnails, titles, etc.
And Supriya, so how did your, if you can share, the content strategy grew, like sharing on YouTube? Were you sharing like once a week? Like if somebody is inspired, a little girl is inspired in college by Supriya and wants to start her own YouTube channel today,
Yeah,
what would you advise her? How to
yeah,
have the kind of patience you have, what kind of content and the teams that you have built over
sure.
the last 5 6 years.
So it's evolved a lot. I think what's remained the same is consistency. Earlier, we would probably do one talk a week or a one talk every 2 weeks, but everybody would know that Monday is the talk release date, and everybody would work towards that date. Where we are today, we do close to 3 talks a week for Hindi and English, and 2 talks a week for 6 other languages. So cumulatively, it's a lot of content that we're pushing out. But for YouTube, I think a couple of things work for us. One is that consistency. So the user knew exactly when the talk is going to get released, and they were able to keep up with it. They were excited about when the next release would be. The second was authenticity, which is, within the content, like I said, it was unfiltered, completely pure storytelling. You were not putting on a face. You were not trying to show something about yourself that you're not, and audiences really love that, especially in the demographic that we cater to. And so obviously those are the two key points. And the third one would probably be like a lot of effort goes into packaging. So a lot of good videos actually get unnoticed because they don't have the right kind of thumbnails or titles supporting them. And that's something that we also started to work on quite late. But I think now, with the growing wave of creators on YouTube, they've already recognized that and have understood the algorithm. So they're working on that much sooner or earlier in their journey. But I think those are the three things that really help.
And during your journey, was it a time that you were without money,
Yeah.
or you had to ask your parents that give some loan to my business?
Yeah. So I think we've been in moments like that a lot, because even though we are a profitable business, like Josh talks part of it, it's heavy reliant on cash flow from advertisers, right? And we all know how like payments are really bad and working capital is really bad in an ad run business. But I think the worst time was, so we were doing Leap, which is where Anurag spoke, and it was after a really long time. We were doing this Dhamaka event, 6,000 people in Delhi University were going to show up, and we had a lot of sponsors pull back on the last minute. And we were literally 4 days away from the event. We had 12 lakhs to pay to the stadium, and we had, I think, 80,000 in our account. And we were just going mad with this idea of, we need to cancel this. And we knew that, like, that actually was a point where we knew if we didn't do that event, we would probably shut down, or we would not be in a situation to get up from that. Because imagine like 5,000 people are coming to see something and you're going to cancel it last minute. What kind of damage will that have on your reputation? And I remember at that point of time, I'd met Rana Athia, who's the founder of Dog Spot. He was in Gurgaon as well, and over breakfast, and I was literally just howling and crying and saying that I'll have to go back home and say this is not working out. मेरे को corporate job लगा देंगे, मेरे को CA करवा देंगे, because that's what I ran away from.
Yeah.
And he just and I don't know what it was, but he didn't really give me a way out. But he just showed a lot of faith in me, and I think that's what sort of triggered this idea that let's sell stalls. We have 5,000 people coming. Let's sell 100 stalls for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 rupees, whatever we are able to sell them for, and let's get money in. So we were able to do that, and then we had to take some amount of money from our friends and family, but we were able to pull that. And I think that's like one of the biggest sort of like historic moments in our journey, because it completely changed the trajectory of what people perceived us to be. Nothing like that had happened, in India before. And yeah.
Wow, that would have given so much confidence to you on that day when you would have been able to come out of self doubt and
Yeah.
pull that through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as an entrepreneur, self doubt is the worst thing that you can do to yourself, but it keeps popping up time and time again. But yeah, I think that was a really, really pivotal moment.
So what are your other moments of self doubt have been during the Josh journey?
So, I mean, we've transitioned and moved a lot, right? Like from moving from an events business to a video business. Video also, vernacular video did not exist in 2017. When we were there, there was only maybe two or three other players in the south, mostly in the entertainment category. You didn't know of any channels that actually existed in Marathi, Punjabi, Bengali. So that was obviously there. That are we too new for the market? Are people even going to, consume this content online? Then a lot of self doubt was brought upon, with people saying that motivation will saturate, and nobody will want to view this content over years. But what we've seen is like a video actually performs better in year two and year three. So it's almost like our views grow exponentially in year two and year three, as opposed to everybody consuming it at this point of time. So there are a lot of triggers, but it's been a long journey with ups and downs. But I think we've been able to overcome a lot of that questioning now.
And what are your current self doubts, right? Current self doubts, I think, would be of scale. Can you build
Hmm.
it 100 crores business?
Yeah, I think that's what, and a lot of the ecosystem also triggers your self doubt from time to time, right? So I think now that we're in the space where we're building, an edtech business, skills is exactly that. There is an opportunity to scale fast, grow, raise more money, and I think that's where again the self doubt comes. That are you the most capable person, being somebody who's from a non-technical background, to actually run and scale this business? And those are kind of sort of like the questions that we have to overcome. Or is this the right time to raise another round of funding? Have we been able to actually grow from the funds that we've raised previously? But yeah, it's an interesting phase. It's another transition, so it'll take some time to get used to it. But it's also like, moving from a, like, we are known for great quality content. We have built an amazing content engine and team from across different parts of the country, and it was difficult to understand the nuances of a person who's speaking in Malayalam or a person who's speaking in Telugu, and we finally implemented that and grown that. And now we're moving into a business which is completely tech run, and now we're trying to understand, hiring for engineers and hiring product managers, and it's a completely different ecosystem from what we know. But I think it's been like the highest learning curve possible, and it's been incredible, like over the last 1 year.
And what have been those stories, which made you feel, apart from this one, the Anurag Kashyap Stadium, that pulling a funding round or, achieving a certain milestone revenue, that you believe, right, this business deserves, the next 10 years of your life.
Yeah. I think, see, from a fundamental point of view, right? Like we are both passionate, Shobit and I are both passionate about the education system in general, right? And I think our belief really is that we were born with an ovarian lottery, but the audience that we cater to and the demographic that we reach out to weren't. So how is it that we can just, bridge that exposure and give them the same level of access to role models, education, infrastructure, career, everything online, and be able to bridge that gap completely? And we know that when you're getting into a problem like that, which is systemic, which has been there for generations, it's not going to get solved overnight. It's going to take 2 to 3 decades to solve. So it's always been that, we've never had a short term view on this, that it's going to be something that we, quickly exit from after building it into a large business. The goal has always been impact and change first. So we always kind of approach problems from that perspective and try to really think of key where are we in our journey today, and how will it kind of evolve in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. That's sort of how we work.
And how do you track the metric, right? That you have impacted a life. Is
Sure.
it the user feedback which you receive
Yeah.
or any other metric?
So for talks, it's mostly through the feedback that we receive from users and the comments that we get, and mostly stories revolve around people who've actually either been able to crack the government exam or dropped out of, their current job, started their own business, changed their stream in college, left an abusive relationship. Those are the kind of stories that we keep getting in. And it's mostly through comments, or we have something called a community tab on YouTube where we regularly interact with our, users or subscribers. And for skills, it's mostly tracked through completion rates. So for people who actually completed the course, we track how it sort of changed their life. Were they able to get a job after that or not? We are not doing the job matching piece right now, but we want to take that up in the future our own selves. But right now we sort of track, like, for example, use cases are very different for people when they're coming in to learn English. It could be as simple as a mother wanting to learn English to talk to her child who lives in the city, and that has a very different kind of an impact and extremely qualitative and emotional. But it could be someone who's in a first job trying to get a promotion, and for the promotion requires spoken English. And that's where we're able to see, tangible economic impact also in the increase in salary of a user. So yeah.
And how do you let your mind not get bogged down by competition in edtech? Because we have now stories of Byju's, Unacademies of the world, Vedantus of the world, and people, when they know that you are running a great edtech business, right? They are naturally bound to compare you to the likes of these.
Yeah.
So how do you counter them, and how do you let not that doubt creep in yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be wrong of me to say that, okay, does that thought never occur to you? I mean, at the end of the day, we're still in our 20s, and we just, these things really, influence your mind, and especially when you're talking to potential investors who have invested in these large organizations. But I think, we try and always circle back to, it's not a problem that's going to be changed overnight. It's not a problem that's going to be changed by, speeding up aggressively on certain aspects. It's a problem that we have to look at holistically, and we have to look at like the last mile solution of it as well, right? For example, we are here, we have an opportunity. Spoken English is doing really well for us, right? So we have an opportunity to create maybe 15 other communication courses, because everybody wants to learn how to speak more effectively. Public speaking is gaining a lot of interest online, personality development, etc. as well. But now if we do that, we can create a decent sized business, we can charge more money for these courses as well. But does it change somebody's employability status at the end of the day? Not more than when they would have just learned the English from the English course. So then those are decisions that we take, where we might be actually taking a back step in terms of quick revenue, or quick growth in numbers. But then for us, it's very important that once this person has actually completed the course, what is the outcome? And completion is also equally important, right? We don't want to be in the space where 2 to 3% of our users are actually completing that course, because we didn't start this for people to not spend time on it. We started it for them to be able to get a job after. And if they're not even completing the course, or such minor percentage is actually completing, then how are they going to achieve the end outcome? And that's sort of what keeps us grounded and brings us back.
And where do you want to see, let's say, Josh business next year in terms of impact, also in terms of numbers?
Sure. So, in terms of impact, our goal is to get to about 2 million paid users in the next 3 years. And that's sort of the target that we are chasing. Currently, we are at 1,75,000 paid users on the app. In terms of revenue, from a 3 year perspective, we look at it at about 100 crores. But from next financial year, it's about 33. And that's where we sort of see ourselves headed.
Fantastic. And Supriya, what do you think, right? Is like you were 19, 20 year old when you started building the Josh Talks team, and today it's a very mature team,
Yeah.
uh, which you have built, like some of the best people in content working with you. How did you get the likes of these people like Manish
Hmm.
to work with you?
Yeah, I think it's the same way that we convince speakers, right? It was always about who are we working for. And everybody knows that, right? Like if you're not mission oriented, the same people who work at Josh have the opportunity to work with the largest education companies right now in India who are producing similar content. And for them to give that decision up and come and join us, it's purely driven from the impact that they see getting created in the end user's life when somebody is learning with us or somebody is watching us as opposed to another platform. And I think that's always been the driving force. The second is that we have a culture of complete ownership. We are, stubborn. Like the average age of the organization is 25. So you can imagine like 125-year-olds working towards a mission like ours. So what we really try and create is that there's a lot of, ownership given to everybody. It's not about just doing your current job or role that's assigned to you. Everybody picks up one side project that they work on, and when they're able to see that through, I think that fulfills them a lot, so they choose to stay with us for long periods of time, and continue to work. Yeah.
And you recently launched a book, right? I would like to know what was the purpose of launching the book, how has the book been received, and how has it played a role in the Josh Talks brand?
Yeah. No, I think so the idea of launching the book was more from a brand perspective as well, because we've had physical events, we have these talks that go up online. We are on all distribution platforms on the internet, but this was just more from something that you can actually take home and hold with you. And that's why the book is actually called All You Need Is Josh, and it features 30 stories of speakers that have been featured on the platform across different languages over the last 5 to 6 years. And this was something that came as a ask from our users only, mostly students who wanted to they wanted something of Josh in their homes. And the idea started from let's have mugs, let's have merchandise, and then it finally reached a stage where we decided that let's do a book. And coincidentally, like it all worked out. Bloomsbury had also reached out to us at that point of time, saying that would you be interested in taking this audiovisual media into another form? And so we decided to publish with them. And yeah, it the book came out one on 30th April actually. So it's been fairly new. And even though there's been like the whole COVID second wave, we've still seen a great response. It's been on number two on Amazon in the self help and motivation category. So people are really liking it and appreciating it.
And Supriya, if I ask you what have been the three, top things which hold the Josh culture today of what is it, right? In a
Yeah,
100-member team, that with very high energies of 25 years old, but you are scaling rapidly. So
yeah.
there must be a process to this madness which is holding it together.
Yeah, we're in the process of creating a process to the madness, but we're always in that process. So yeah. But I think like so we have these words, and like even if you come and visit our office, you'll see like Joe Stock photos across the walls of speakers, and then there are these words, and those words sort of define our culture. And the first word is Vidhi. And that's something that I've been called my entire life, that I'm the most stubborn and Vidhi person. And I think that's one of our core values, and we try and inculcate that in everybody. That for something that you're passionate about, or that you love, or that you want to do and implement, you have to be Vidhi. That's the only way that it will get done. The second is, complete authenticity. Because a lot of content that we deal with, or things that we create, we can easily get enamored by the outside world, and try and do things for views or downloads or purchases, etc. But be authentic to the cause, which is what sort of unites everybody together at Josh. And that's sort of the second value that we have. And the third is ownership. Like you have to be accountable for what you do. Nobody else will ever, it's you end to end. If it works or if it doesn't work, you have to take accountability for what you've done. And those are sort of like the pillars that the team is built on.
And in a previous interview, you mentioned that you both, Shobit and you, the founders of Josh Talks, are very different. So, what are your strengths and what are showbiz strength you bring to the table, and similarly, what are your both weaknesses, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we work very well together because we are able to kind of, I mean, we are able to complement each other's skill sets in that way. So, for example, like Shobit is a hardcore, user-focused product person, right? So his way of working is completely immersing him into one problem and not interacting with anybody else during that problem till he solves it. Just as an example, when all of us are like sort of living here in Gurgaon, etc., in our apartments, he chooses to live where most of the Swiggy delivery bhaiyas stay in Sikandarpur because he just wants to be able to track their behavior day in and day out, actually work with them, show them the app, make changes where they are. So he's super determined to solve for the mission. And that's something that, you see even in his style of work. It's dedicated to what's going to help the end user and nothing else matters to him. Me from that perspective, I think that while I am also equally mission oriented, I try and keep like our feet on the ground and ensure that we have a business around everything that we do. For example, like earlier, I was working on the entire B2B partnerships and ad sales business for Juice Talks, and I built that up. So those are sort of like our strengths, where my focus is mostly on partnerships, business development, fundraising, etc., and his is more on the product side. And yeah, I think our weaknesses would also probably be counterintuitive. Like for example, he detests sales. And he's not very, like, oh, he doesn't like external relations too much, whereas that's something that I enjoy a lot. So we kind of complement each other there.
I think Ankur Wariku mentions about Josh and you and Shobit a lot about on his social. So how has your relationship been? Like, has he been an investor or a mentor?
Yeah,
Uh,
so he started off with actually being a speaker. So Ankur was a speaker at Josh Talks Gurgaon in 2015, and at that point in time he was in Groupon and he used to run, like, he was active on Quora. I'm not sure if you remember, but he was one of the few people who had actually built this base on Quora. And he used to give out his email ID over there, and then I just reached out to him saying you should come and give a talk, and that's how we met. And after the event got over, he actually wrote in saying that I have been a part of so many events and I've spoken at so many festivals, college events, etc. But I have never seen something which was coordinated so smoothly end to end that it was an experience for a speaker also to be a part of that and to witness that. And that's how we started talking, and then we met him at nearby. He was subleasing his office space in nearby. We ended up working there for 1.5 years after Innovate. And that's actually where we sort of like, used to see him. He was quite a role model for us, right? Like he would be handling such a large team. He would just be walking down in the lunch hall. We would be able to catch up with him for 5-10 minutes. And continue to learn from him. And then eventually he did become a shareholder in Josh. So yeah, it's grown there. But he's been consistent. I think Ritesh and Ankur have been like a part of our journey from day one and are still as actively involved as they were then.
Fantastic, great to have such pillars who you can lean on in tough times.
Absolutely, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so one thing which I wanted to ask, about your Josh Skills app,
Hmm.
you have been focused on voice features a lot. What's the reasoning behind it?
Yeah. So I think, if you look at the demographic that we cater to, it's essentially, people from tier two, tier three, tier four India, with a very different style of consumption. And we actually started this course on WhatsApp. So we said that, okay, none of us are from a tech background. Let's not go deep into actually building out an app. Let's create a small pilot on WhatsApp, and let's use features that are available on WhatsApp since it's the platform that our users use the most, and see what can we actually do from a learning point of view there. So what we used to do is that we used to use the WhatsApp mic feature, and every day at 8 a.m. there would be a teacher who would record a class and send it on voice, and then you would have to send in your answers on voice as well. Video, not really. We used to use a bit of video, but not so much because from a space and storage point of view for the end user. And that voice feature really worked for us over there, and the chat did as well. So when we basically built the app, we decided to, inculcate those two aspects from WhatsApp as the first thing, which was chat and voice. And I think, like, since we decided to focus on spoken English as the first course, what we really saw was that there are a lot of courses that are there available in the market, but there is nothing that's getting you to practice daily. And that's the only thing that's important. Everybody in India, almost everybody in India knows broken words. They know like A for apple, B for bat, C for cat, dog, etc. थोड़ी बहुत उन्होंने सुनी भी है, but the ability to confidently put the sentence together is something that we felt was lacking. And the only way to get to that stage was if you just practice day in and day out and spoke. So even on the app today, we have a feature called P2P, which is like our speaking practice, where you can call anybody else on the app who's learning and practice with them. And that's where users spend a lot of their time. I mean, there are users who spend close to maybe even 10 hours on the app a day just speaking, but an average person spends close to 42 minutes just speaking on the app per day.
How do you know that people are not using it for dating purposes, right?
No,
Speaking 10 hours.
actually, if they are using it for dating purposes, it's great for us because we're building a community, right? And like, why did you
Yeah.
go to college? I think a lot of us went to college not for the outcome of college, but to find our prospective partners or to, have fun, engage in events, etc. And that's actually, it's interesting that you said that, because even when we talk about it internally, we literally talk about it as that for people to complete a course online, it has to be much more than what's being taught. It's about who's teaching, who are you learning with, how are you interacting, what are the things that you do besides learning, and all of that kind of motivates you to stay within the course. And that's what we're trying to create.
Thank you so much, Supriya. It's been fantastic to know the Josh journey, right?
No,
And wish you tens of millions of more users and tens of millions of more of revenues.
yeah,
Wonderful to
no.
see how Josh evolved in the last 6 years.
Thank you so much. This was super fun and it's so great to connect with you again. It's always amazing to connect back with someone who was like at the same position as you on day one. And it's inspiring to see how your journey has evolved as well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Supriya.